What's up, everybody? Chicago Goonie here, bringing another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, I'm just going to be talking about some transfer stuff and what we have to look forward to or not look forward to in the near future because, there's only about 21 days now until the window slams shut. Very little time to really get anything going as far as transfers go and getting people in. I think yesterday was was a rude awakening in that Liverpool game of how weak our defense is and how weak we are up top, I guess you can say. Um, we already lost one midfielder already, obviously, with Aaron Ramsey being out for about a month. It'll probably be another 2 weeks after that, just so he can get fit again. Hopefully, it's about 6 weeks so he can have actually a time to get fit and just practice instead of just throwing him to the wolves like Arsene Wenger usually does. But to go over some of the tweets that was made today by the Oracle, there's an ITK tweet as well, and about John Cross, a John Cross quote, and then another guy from Sky Sports who's been talking about Lacazette for the last like 3 or 4 weeks, being linked to us and whatnot, and it kind of blew up in his face. But to go on to the first one, it's about Mustafi, and it's very concerning when it reading these tweets is the first tweet it just really boggles your mind of what's really going on at Arsenal and their transfer policy and the money they have and what they don't want to have. Over the last couple days, too, the Swiss Ramble and a couple other guys have made tweets out talking about what the transfer budget should be um, through this window, and it was about um, 100 million pounds. Now, we already spent 40 of that on three players. Two that are supposed to be for the future. Obviously, one played in the opener with Rob Holding. Chaka being the other one, and a Japanese kid being the third player that we bought. And so you were looking at it, and you're looking at it, and there's about 60 million pounds left to spend. They're saying that the Oracle said that there's a price issue with Mustafi because they're trying to hold back as much money as possible, basically penny pitching to get a striker in. Who that striker is, no one knows. I'll get into that later. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But again, and then there's a John Cross quote by this ITK that said that Arsenal values Mustafi at 25 or at 20 million. Valencia wants 25 million, and of course you'll probably add on the bonuses. It's probably going to come out to about 30 million. That's what another news outlet, I think it's the Mail, which is not that great of an outlet to begin with, is saying that Valencia, you know, they want 30 million in total for Mustafi, which given his age, given his future possibly, um, it's a fair price, I think. If you're looking at a lot of the other center halves and the money they went for, I mean, John Stones went for 50 million. That Bally kid from that went to Manchester United went for what, like 30, 35. He's a kid too. Um, Omatiti went to Barcelona for 25 million. He's only 21 years old. Mustafi's 24 and has all the attributes. I mean, he has all the attributes to stand right next to Koss and be the compliment that Koss deserves. He doesn't deserve, a per Mertesacker. He doesn't deserve, again, he has a bright future, but Colin Chambers, he deserves better. Gabriel, we just don't know. I mean, he really hasn't had a run of games since he's been here. You can't really figure out if a player is ready or he can be that player unless you give him a run of games, and Arsene Wenger just doesn't do that, unfortunately. He buys some of these players and he gives them 1 or 2 games, and then it's just kind of like, which is, you can't do that. You can't spend whatever type of money you do on a player and just give them 1 or 2 games here and there. That's just not gonna. You need that experience. You need that in-game experience. You need to play before you can prove yourself. It just can't be on the training ground. If you, obviously, if you looked at last season, how Theo Walcott kept on making the 18, how he kept on getting on the bench. Um, same with the Ox and you know a number of other players that should never been on the bench last season, even because they just weren't good enough. Their confidence wasn't good. They just didn't play well when they got on the pitch, and somehow they made it on the 18. Probably because they're training warriors. They look great in training, but then when they get in an actual game, they just take a dump. So maybe this is how Arsene Wenger really looks at the squad, which is a joke at the end of the day. But if you're looking at the John Cross quote, to where we value him at 20 million, Valencia wants 25, are we really going to penny pinch that much? I mean, 5 more million. I mean, that's a match day. That's a Champions League match day basically for us. I mean, that's just a home match day Champions League wise. Maybe 2 match days in the Premier League. That's it. That's all you're talking about. 5 million to a club like Arsenal, who has just loads of money. There's on Reddit today there was a couple threads made about our financial status and everything like that, and some of these financial geeks are actually on Reddit, and they basically said for us to have any type of financial crisis at Arsenal, we would need to do something stupid like spend 3 or 400 million pounds for us to be in actual crisis. But then you're just talking about 5 fucking million. That's it. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You paid that for the Japanese kid, but you can't pay 5 more million for an established player who's internationally experienced. You can't pay 5 million for that. Did you not see what happened at the Liverpool game? That was a real team. Okay, that's a real manager. That's going to continue to happen to us game after game when we go up against these real managers. They're all going to have a game plan. They're all going to have tactics. They're all going to be able to motivate their players. And you saw it the second half of the game. Liverpool is a completely different team. It's like they just weathered the storm in that first half. Because, like any other Arsenal side, when it comes to the second half, we just fall apart. We stay in the dressing room for 5 or 10 minutes. And Klopp kind of he identified that. He knows that. He's that good of a manager that he can identify that and say the first 10 minutes of the second half, go all out, press them, attack the shit out of them, and hey, they got 4 goals out of it. Well, it took them 15 minutes to get their 4 goals or their 3 extra goals. I mean, what else needs to happen? Do we need to go in the Leicester City game and just get fucking smashed again for Arsene Wenger to finally say, okay, fine, 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 I'll spend the money? It's a joke. It really is. 5 million. I mean, that's we're not a small club. We're acting like a small club with 5 million. If you're talking about, I don't know, maybe like a Watford or something, maybe a Swansea City, to where they really have to pay attention to every single dime they have and what they spend it. But they're even spending money, for Christ's sakes. They're not worrying about it because they know they're going to get that money back at some point. But Arsenal, I mean, it's like we spend 5 million more, we're never going to see that money ever fucking again. It's a joke. It really is. The last tweet where I said the Sky Sports guy, these quotes were made by Lacazette himself after the game. He was asked about transfers, asked about, he finally spoke out about transfers. Like I said, when a player doesn't say anything, but then when he finally does say something, it's usually near the end of the window. You go back to the Cesc Fabregas thing when we signed Ozil instead of him. The same thing. But Lacazette, he kept the door open for us if we really want him. But again, I think it's just too much money for Arsene Wenger to actually spend. Um, he said if offers come in that one can't refuse, I don't want to refuse them. If not, I'm happy at Lyon. He's still leaving the door open to leave, even with all the president and the manager over at Lyon saying he's not for sale. We want to keep him. We're only gonna take a 60 million pound bid for him. So who knows what's gonna happen? Going back to the Mustafi quote by the Oracle, he said we need to hold back as much money as possible for a striker. Who is that striker then? I've been brainstorming the entire day. I was like, who's really out there? Because everybody's still holding out hope for Lewandowski and Griezmann. Get that out of your head. It's not going to happen. So I'm thinking, what other strikers are really out there for Arsenal to really go after? Good goal scorer, maybe good in the air, has some pace to him. There was one name that popped into my head because I saw an article um, about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. It was on Chicharito, aka Javier Hernandez, the Mexican, plays for the Mexican national team. Used to play for Man United, went on loan for a year at Real Madrid, and now he's with Bayern Leverkusen. And that really kind of popped into my head because in this article that he was interviewed on, he was talking, they were talking about transfers. And with these transfers, he always got dealt on almost the last day of the deadline. And he said, hey, it could happen again this year. He kind of revitalized his career at Bayern Leverkusen. He never really got a chance at Man United. He didn't really get a chance at Real Madrid. He kind of came alive at the end of the season. He had that goal in the Champions League that sent them to I think the semifinal, and then they ended up losing to Juventus. Um, but then going to Bayer Leverkusen, he kind of revitalized his career. I think he had over 20 goals last year in all competitions. Played really well in the Bundesliga, which is probably like the closest league as far as playing style to the EPL. And other than that, I can't really think of any strikers really out there that are like really maybe worthy of bringing in to Arsenal that has Premier League experience. He has that. He's good in the air. He has pace to him. Decent finishing. I mean, he's a decent striker. I wouldn't. I'd rather have Lacazette before him. Any day of the week. I think Lacazette is a better striker, but again, you're looking at the price tag too. You're looking at that price, so if we do end up having to spend 25 million on Mustafi, that's say 65 million total in the transfer window. So we only have 35 million more left. Um, Given this, again being this late in the window, and Bayer Leverkusen, they're pretty stern when it comes to their transfers and letting one of their players go, even this late in the transfer window. On top of that, to where they might not have a replacement or whatnot. But are they willing to sell because they are in Champions League again this year, I believe too. Um, I don't know if they have the play-in. I think they're in the playoffs actually. I think they start tomorrow or today, I guess today and tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday. I believe the playoff games, and then next week is their final legs. Um, so maybe they're waiting to see if Leverkusen is going to go through or not, if they're going to make the group stage. Um, but is Leverkusen willing to let a player like that go this late in the window? Their season starts, I think, Friday, I believe. They had their Super Cup over the weekend, and again, that's one of the few players that you can really identify that would be, I guess, kind of worthy for Arsene Wenger to possibly buy. But again, would he want to come back to English Premier League? Does he have any type of loyalty to Manchester United that he wouldn't want to come to us? I don't know. Danny Welbeck, he came to us. He was part of Manchester United, so maybe that loyalty is not there anymore. But I mean, that's probably the only striker that I can really think of. Other than that, there's not too many others out there that we can spend 35, maybe 40 million pounds on. Um, because I would imagine if we are still in for Mares, and like I said, that deal, I don't that that deal's not going to happen until after next weekend because I can't see um, Arsenal putting him in that position of playing that game in front of his old fans and stuff like that. So if that deal is still on the table, if that deal is still going to happen, it's not going to be until after. But again, you know, he would cost anywhere from 40 to 50 million pounds. I mean, Blassie just went for, I believe, 28 million pounds to Everton today. Um, so if you're looking at Blassie deal, like I said in my last video about Mahrez and Mustafi, if you're looking at that deal, I mean, the PF Player of the Year, it's going to be minimum of 45 to 50 million. And again, if you get out the calculator, you say 25 million for Mustafi, you're still going over that 100 million mark. But Arsene Wenger has said up and down for the last several years, if the player is available, money is not the issue, and I will spend the money. Well, again, the lies again. Um, there is a um, you know Phil Neville and Carragher today um, did a nice piece on how they feel sorry for the Arsenal fans of how Arsene Wenger and Ivan Gazidis and the Arsenal board is pulling the wool over our eyes. Terry Henry on Sunday just hit us, took a baseball bat to Arsene Wenger's head. Um, you know, it's going to get to the point to where it's just going to be too much anymore. I mean, there's that picture of Aaron Ramsey just giving the death stare to Arsene Wenger as he's clutching his head down into his legs. Uh, it's just going to be too much. I mean, like I said, we lost against Liverpool. It's just going to be toxic. I mean, it was toxic. I watched one uh, Arsenal fan TV interview, and you could just hear the fans in the background like arguing almost to the point to where almost it seemed like they were going to start fighting. And this is what's going to continue on happening, especially if he does not make any fucking signings. And I feel sorry for Ornstein, who's the Oracle for Arsenal. He seems to be the main media member that Arsenal trusts with information. It almost seems like they're using him right now. It almost seems it's going to get to the point to where he's going to become unreliable now. And I feel sorry for the guy because he usually doesn't talk about anything, any transfers, until they're basically in the door doing medicals, and that's when he starts talking about them. That's when that's a reliable source rather than spitting bullshit out. Basically, like this Sky Sports guy who's been you know talking bullshit about Lacazette for like the last 3-4 weeks, and it's gonna the pot is boiling at this point, and it's gonna roll over. And there's nowhere that Arsene Wenger is gonna be able to hide this entire season. Last year he was able to escape because it was the end of the season. Most of the shit that happened came in the last couple months of the season in April and May. And then he had an escape route. He had the summer that he didn't have to worry about the fans coming down at him in the stadium. He didn't have to worry about anything really. And it's just going to keep on getting worse and worse with every loss, even draws. I think we draw against some scrub ass team. When we go away from the Emirates, the banners are going to be out again. How much can this guy take? How much more this do people need to say or do for this guy to do anything? He's ruining his own legacy. That's what it is. I mean, it's going to get to the point to where, you know, does he really deserve a statue outside the Emirates when he's doing this type of stuff? I mean, with the Lacazette stuff, I mean, he could have had him at for 50 million euros. Now it's up to about 60 to 70 million euros. And like I said in my last episode, let's say he scores 30 goals this year. He's going to be 60 to 70 million euros next summer. When we could have had him for 20 million less in the beginning of the summer. And I think at the end of the day, Lacazette's probably just going to end up going to PSG next summer because Cavani is not getting any younger. He's going to be I think he is on the wrong side of 30 already. So PSG is going to be looking for a replacement sooner rather than later. Because let's be honest, Cavani's not Ibra. Ibra's been the exception of all strikers to where, you look at RVP, look at his decline over the last several years. But then, you look at Ibra, he's still knocking in 25, 30 goals a season. And he'll probably do it again this year. Because he's just going to manhandle some of the center halves of the BPL. There's not too many strikers that the BPL center halves have ever seen that's as powerful as he is and as great on the ball as he is and as great as a finisher as he is. And it's going to be trouble. As long as that guy can stay healthy, Man United is going to be a handful this season. And that's what I've been talking about. It's going to be difficult for us to get top four. Especially when you have a manager sitting on the fucking sidelines doing nothing. In all the interviews, in some of the podcasts I've been listening to over these last couple days since the Liverpool loss, everybody's been saying the same thing. The first goal, second goal, third goal, and fourth goal, he was just sitting there. Never got up once. After that second goal went in, he should have been up off his ass. Where was Steve Bold, too? If we were so concerned about Colin Chambers and Rob Holding as our center halves, we were so concerned about our defense, why wasn't Steve Bold up on the touchline, directing traffic, helping those kids out during the game? No, Arsene Wenger was just sitting right next to Steve Bold, waving his hands all around and talking to him. What does that do? They're dissecting the game, but what does that do for our players? Nothing. I read in one Reddit thing that someone thinks that, in-game adjustments don't matter. You know why someone says that? Because they're so used to Arsene Wenger just sitting on his ass not doing any in-game adjustments. That's how we get beat every fucking time by big clubs. That's how we get beat in Champions League every fucking year. Because there's managers out there who are so great at tactics that they can make in-game adjustments and get their players in the right place every single game, every single minute of the game. You saw after the first goal went in for Theo Walcott, Klopp was up off his ass, clapping on his players, trying to give him some motivation, trying to get him refocused, basically saying, hey, a lot of game is left. Refocus, stick to the game plan. Because basically the game plan was, let's just wear out Arsenal. And then when we come out in the second half, we're just going to be the stronger, faster team. And it's exactly what happened. There's just no fight left in Arsene Wenger anymore. He just wants to sit there on the bench, be a sideshow freak, collect his £8.5 million a year for doing nothing. complaining about fitness that we weren't mentally or we weren't physically fit enough for the game. What the fuck were you doing for the whole preseason? Why was Jack Wilshere on the bench when he's not fit? Why wasn't Joel Campbell on the bench when he's more fit than anybody else? Why was Aaron Ramsey playing at the 10 when Santi is more fit than he is? Joel Campbell could have started at striker. We could have just still started Lexi Sanchez on the left wing. Iwobi's hurt now. Who knows how long? I guess he has a thigh injury. Who knows how long he's going to be out for? Joel Campbell plays striker for his national team. He can play the position. But yet we're throwing unfit players out to the wolves. And it's exactly what happens. And then Conklin is playing the more pressed CM out of him and El Nani, even though El Nani is a better passer of the ball. He has better vision. He has better passing accuracy, but for some reason we have Conklin playing as a CM. What the fuck is that? If you were so worried about the kids, you should have started shotgun from the beginning. If you want a CM to be not only defensive but also to be able to pass the ball, then you start shotgun instead of Conklin. And Conklin has more pace than El Nani does to cover for the center halves and the fullbacks. But yet he's the one that's pressing forward more than anybody. Just didn't get it. The tactics again were just fucked up. And by the time the second half started, we just ran out of gas. It wasn't until Santi and the Ox came on that we had a little bit more energy to us. When they probably should have been starting to begin with. So I don't get it. But tell me what you guys think. Is Chicharito a name that you would accept at Arsenal Football Club? If he's the bottom of the barrel, if he's like our last ditch effort, would that be someone that you would welcome in? I mean, at this point, I think we would almost welcome just kind of like any striker, you know, instead of seeing Giroud up there the entire fucking year. I think we would accept just about anybody at this point. And the center half thing goes, fucking A, man. Obviously, Koss is probably going to be forced to start next week. Ozil's probably going to be fast tracked as well. Giroud's probably going to be fast tracked as well. If any one of those guys gets hurt next weekend, I'm just going to fucking absolutely fucking lose it. And I might just say, if we don't make any signings too, I might just say fuck the whole season. And just start boycotting and just say, what, screw it. I'm going to wait till this old fossil leaves until I can start actually cheering on the Arsenal again. Until a real manager gets in place and starts spending the money and starts showing some real tactics. Because you get a tactical, this is one thing that the AKBs don't understand. You get a real tactical manager. You get a guy like Ronald Koeman, who I would love at Arsenal. Just his tactics alone would give us 8 to 10 more points every single season based on that alone. Hey, you can't win the Premier League without scoring more than 80 points in a season. You can't win the Premier League in this modern era without having less than 3 to 4 losses in this entire year. We already have one loss against a side who is considered maybe the 5th or 6th best team according to like pundits and whatnot. The 5th or 6th best team in the EPL. We're lucky we kept it at 4. It could have been 5, 6 easily. Czech made a couple of good saves. The only kind of saves he could make in last on Sunday's game. It could have got real ugly. But again, tell me what you guys think. Holding out hope. Hope is about to be a lost dog that'll never get found. But tell me what you guys think. Write down your frustrations if you need to. Might make you feel a little bit better. And yeah, that's it. Later.